Is the inner critic getting in your way of doing or becoming what you want?
On today's show, we're going to be talking about silencing the inner critic in order to accomplish what you want in life.
Stay tuned. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Awaken Your Spirit. We are your hosts. I'm Dr. Aaron Garcia.
And I'm Veronica Mendez Garcia. And our show is about inspiration, motivation, and developing the mindset to live a happy and abundant life.
We are live every week, Mondays and Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern. If you guys would like to join us here on the show, make sure you guys turn on the live notification buttons here in the feed if you're watching on Facebook. If you're watching on YouTube, you can subscribe to our channel and turn on that live bell notification so you never miss an episode when we are live.
And we have also added an extra fun day, which we actually changed it to Thursdays. It's Numerology Thursdays with Darius Oliver. So that will be 10 a.m. Pacific time.
Yes, and we'll make sure you guys get all the details for that. Today, we're talking about silencing that inner critic, that little voice that's within us that tells us that we're not good enough, you can't do things, and it can really stop us in our tracks when we're trying to accomplish anything in our life. And what we can do to help silence that so we can move forward with whatever it is that we want to do. But before we get into that, we always like to start off with our first segment of our show, which is the inspirational moment with Veronica.
So inspirational moments is when I like to read something inspirational. And today I have a book that I'm going to be reading a paragraph from it, and it's called Working with the Law by Raymond Hollowell. And it's 11 Truth Principles for a Successful Living. There it is. And this is such a great book because Aaron and I study the mind and emotions all the time. We're always, learning different things. And this one's talking about the law of receiving. So it says, when we speak of giving, most people have a tendency to think first of giving their money. Money, an object of human affection so passionate that men will slay and steal to gain its possession, is by nature so obedient to our will that we can hold it gently in our hand or fold it fondly in our purse without feeling any resistance from its nature. With all the selfish getting ideas which man attaches to it, man has not changed its nature or its purpose. What does money get out of constantly giving itself into the hands that so eagerly grasp it? Nothing. Nothing beyond the joy of giving itself in the fulfillment of its mission. Man may do some terrible deed to obtain it. He may pay it for something detrimental to his progress. But in all these exchanges, man, not money, loses value. Just as the sun shines on the deserving and undeserving hand to accomplish its work. Its purpose is to exchange without discrimination, leaving the latter to the mind that is using it. Money goes merrily on its way, losing nothing in self-value in giving itself.
I like that. If you guys enjoy the inspirational moments, make sure you give us some hearts, give us some likes. And if you know that there's anybody that can benefit from the message of the show today, make sure you invite them here into the show, tag their name, share this with them, because as we always say, we never know who this message is going to impact. And that's fascinating. What I love reading this book, and we'll read it once in a while, we'll put it down, come back, and it's really something to study.
Yeah.
It's understanding the universal laws and how if we learn to apply them in our life and understand them and follow the rules, then things will fall in place to exactly how we would like them to be.
Yeah, and in regards to to the exchange of money and everything, it's there was another part here that I didn't read. It says concentrating on the joy of giving instead of concentrating on the returns, we find that our purpose and the purpose of money have blended, and we come together in righteousness and eternal good. So it's like when you're doing something for someone, it's like do it out of joy, and even if you're getting paid to do something, you know, still bring that joy out of it, and mainly for the joy of doing it, not because of the money that you're going to receive.
Exactly.
So it's like, you know, lead a life in joy and happiness. And if you agree to do something for someone, do it because you want to do it, not because you feel forced to do it or because you're getting money for it. So if you're going to get money for something, but you don't really want to do what you said you're going to do, then that's kind of like the wrong reason for doing it.
It's just it's a different energy.
It's an energy. Exactly.
But it's like when we're doing things that we love doing, it's like we're giving our service. It's that creative part of us that wants to express. And as we give, we graciously receive. And that's, I believe, how we all should live our life is, you know, do something that you really, really love doing in your life, whether it's vocation. Just find something that brings you joy that you can be creative with and see what comes from that.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for joining us here today on the Inspirational Moment. Again, if you like that, share this on the show. And I really enjoy the inspirational moments. I know a lot of people involved. If you guys enjoy it, type yes, I enjoy this here into the feed as well. If you guys have questions, if you guys have comments, make sure you also type those here into the comments so we can hear from you. Let us know where you're coming from. We'd love to hear from you. Questions, put those here into the feed as well. Veronica Mendez says, good morning. Good morning, Veronica.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to the show. Love to hear from you guys. Ask your questions here in the feed, and we'll get to those to the best of our ability during today's show. All right. Let's get into the nitty gritty.
All right.
You ready? So
Sure.
we're talking about silencing the inner critic. Ooh, and that critic could be so loud sometimes. I've had to deal with that critic for so long. And I know you guys have too. We all have in some way. And it can really stifle us in our life.
Yeah, and it's really that inner critic is really our ego telling us like, oh, you can't do that, or you're not good enough, and we start to get in our head and create these stories of and putting limitations on ourselves because of an experience or because of an experience that someone told you that they had, and you're afraid to move forward because you think you're going to have the same experience they did. And it can really stop us in our tracks from moving forward with what we want to do. So that's why it's important, like when you hear that inner critic, say, okay, this is just my ego talking and putting up limitations, but I'm greater than this and I can move forward and continue to do what I want to do.
Yeah. And it's interesting because in his book, Think and Grow Rich from Napoleon Hill, he mentions the 6 ghosts of fear. And one of those 6 fears is the fear of criticism. And it's one thing that really stops people is of what are other people going to think about me? What are they going to say? The judgments, the ridicules, all of that goes and plays within our mind. And that's why a lot of people will stop or not even try sometimes to go out and express or do the things that they want to do because of that fear of criticism, that fear of judgment. And that's just of other people. But the one that really can stop us is our own critic, is what we say about ourselves based on previous experiences, based on what other people might have said, and we've taken that as truth. But then we have to question ourselves sometimes. Is this true? But that critic can be so loud, and we have to learn to, talk to it. We have to learn how to silence that, so that way it can never get in your way.
But also when you have that inner critic constantly saying maybe negative things, that's when you also get the fear of judgment from others, because you have that critic about yourself, or that, you criticize yourself and you're not good enough and things like that. Now you fear that other people are going to think the same way you're thinking. Yeah. So then you tend to attract maybe those people that will criticize you and say things.
Yeah. And we avoid things. So if I'm fearing this in my own mind, then perhaps there's a potential that someone's going to say that exact same thing. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to go through that experience, because it's going to mean something very deep for me and possibly relate to something, meaning that it might prove to me that I'm no good, or that I'm not good enough. And that's the thing that we have to really silence and stop, because a lot of that is not necessarily true, but we make it true in our own mind.
But also by thinking it, you attract those people who will criticize and say things or put you down. So that's why it's so important to change that inner critic or silence it and have a more positive inner self, and you will tend to attract more positive people into your life.
And speaking of positive people, I want to say hello. Stephen Smith joining with us.
Hey,
Says, good
Stephen.
morning, Aaron Veronica.
Good
morning. Good
morning.
morning. He says, it's a yes, that inner critic we were talking about earlier. As we all have that sometimes, a yes. I have Abigail Ingle saying hello.
I think the yes was liking the inspirational moments.
It's a yes to everything, right? Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, yes.
So thank you guys for joining with us. Let us know where you're coming from. Everybody's saying hello. Say hello. Hello. Say hello here into the feed,
Is that
everybody.
a new way of saying hello?
That's another way of saying hello. It's my own language. Hello. We have fun here. Because it's live. And again, and one of the things that really, when we first started to do this live, which was going on almost 3 years now, back in November, was I hesitated for so long, wondering, is this going to be good enough? What are people going to say? Are they going to like it? And I allowed that critic to play so deeply into my life for so long that it created a lot of self-sabotage in a lot of different things. And one of the ways that really helped me to work on that critic was to see myself in a different way, which meant of working on myself at the inner level and letting go of all types of fears, different experiences, different meanings that I put on scenarios and situations, and not being so hard on myself. But I had to do a lot of work, and I'm still working on a lot of stuff because we're always a work in progress.
Yeah. And it's a good thing because we have so many years of, stuff that has happened to us. And when we learn to let go, forgive, and move forward, things just get easier in a sense because we're no longer holding on to what we did in the past. And the more we can better ourselves by working on ourselves internally, it's like the better our outside circumstances will get, and things won't affect you as much.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier about the ego. And what we've come to understand is that ego it's that part of us that believes that we are something separate than our source, that spirit that's within all of us, meaning that it's the perfection that we are born perfect. There's nothing wrong with us. But somewhere along the line, we get caught up in this delusion that we are something separate, and we start to make meaning in our own life based on our perceptions, using our 5 senses of what we see around us. We take that information in, and we have to digest it. We have to assimilate it. And sometimes what can happen is, it's like we take in the information that is beneficial for us, we process that, and we get rid of all the waste, anything that doesn't serve us. But a lot of times what can happen based on experiences is those ideas, that information gets congested and it doesn't process very well. And we start to absorb it and we don't let things go. And it becomes it's almost like this internal constipation that happens in our mind.
That's what I was thinking. Right?
And it creates toxicity in our life, from toxic thoughts, toxic ideas. And we have to learn to flush our own mind, our own ego, because and let it know that there's nothing wrong with us. We are perfect. We can achieve and accomplish anything. But it tends to believe, based on these experiences, that we can't do something, that we're no good, we don't look good enough, based on what society and the outside world is telling us what's right, what's wrong. Here's how you should look. Here's the things that you should do. Here's what's normal. Here's what's weird. And we start to make our own personalities around that.
So let's go to the comments.
All right, let's go to Abigail.
Abigail says, it can help to stop talking to disruptors that don't give us a chance to learn from our struggles. The struggles are there to teach us if we see it. Yeah, and that's that awareness of knowing that this struggle is here for a reason, and it's to help me move forward. So it's like embracing those challenges that we have and working through it, and it helps us to grow.
Yeah. Stephen says, I used to be my own best critic. It made for a lot of misery. Today, I tend to go much easier on myself and try not to be such a perfectionist. Perfectionism is sort of obsessive compulsive disorder, because if we're trying to strive for perfection, that means it's never going to be good. Because perfection is that it's kind of like that carrot that's dangling in front of us that we're trying to run towards, and it's like we feel like it's almost there, but it doesn't. Even when
it's never good enough.
It's never good enough. Even if we reach it, it's like there's something that can always be improved. That can always be better. So we do the best that we can, but that ego tells us, oh, it's not good enough. Which means if it's not good enough, then what are people going to think? And you're not good. And all the criticism that goes on our own mind starts to really take play. And how does that make us feel? It doesn't make us feel very good.
Yeah. So just tell yourself, I did the best I could with what I have, with what I know, and leave it at that. But don't beat yourself up for, thinking it's not perfect.
Yeah.
And Stephen says we are perfect in our own special way. And that is true.
Yeah. And Abigail agrees that it can become obsessive compulsive if we don't see it. And so that's the biggest thing when we're talking about that inner critic. How can we silence it? Or what are the things that we can do to really start to change the conversation that's going on in our mind? And the first part is we always share is we have to be aware of it. That's what Abigail was just talking about. We have to be able to see that. And once we are aware, then we start to pay attention to the signs or the signals that go on in our life. And a lot of times it shows up in our emotions, how we feel. And that's a big indicator about, a lot of things. When something's not going right, how do we feel? How does this make me feel? What is going on in this situation? And one of the biggest things that I've been working on and doing is if I start to see anything, is what is that showing? What's the reflection? What's the mirror reflection that's showing back within me that I need to work on? Because I find that, we have weeds in our mind that are all the negative thoughts, the negative ideas, and we can be aware of those and we can pluck those weeds out. What I found is just working on our yard and garden is if you don't tend to it often, those weeds can slowly creep back in. If you are definitely not aware of it, then they can grow very tall and those roots can grow very deep and hang on to you.
Yeah. So that's why it's important to let go of those negative thoughts, the beliefs, and, work on yourself constantly. Because it is a constant thing that, especially if we just started working on ourselves internally, later in life, there's so many years of stuff, taught to us by parents, by teachers, friends, and, just our perception of the world around us, which created that inner critic.
Yeah. And this, we bring this topic up for you today because, again, a lot of our topics, the things we share and teach you, has been a lot of our own experiences and things that we've been aware of, and areas that we want to improve on in our life. And it's like, why do we criticize? Why do people criticize either ourselves or other people? And a lot of times it's because of habits. We are brought up in different environments. And some people have environments where it's all about criticism, criticizing other people for what they're doing, their accomplishments, what they're not accomplishing. And we can get so caught up in, that's just the way that we do it because that's the way I was taught. Or
also society. Yeah. Like if you pay attention to like the magazines and the news and it's all criticism. It's criticizing people, and pointing out flaws in other people. And, you see like tabloids and stuff, and there's everything is so negative, and this is what so-and-so, and they went out dressed like this, and it just, no one, when you see that, it's like, does that really make you feel good? Or, does it make the other person feel good? No. So it's society has also put that, in our minds of like, this is acceptable.
Yeah. And when we don't feel good about ourselves on the inside, and maybe there's something that we want to accomplish. Maybe there's a certain way we want to look or we want to feel. Maybe there's some accomplishment that we want to achieve. And we're not seeing that in our life, but we're seeing other people. And a lot of times, we have to really work on that concept of envy or jealousy in our own mind about why are they achieving something and I'm not. And I definitely had this, I struggled with this and worked on this quite a bit because that used to reign constantly in my mind. And what it does is creates misery because it creates like, I'm not good enough, or they're better than me. How come I can never achieve things? And because I would have that conversation going on in my mind, I would see it over and over again because it was my area of focus.
Or you feel entitled to certain things because either, schooling or, better grades or whatever it is, like now you feel entitled to have more than another person.
And it's all based on false perceptions
Mm-hmm.
of what society tells us. And it's like, we should be doing these and then you'll achieve this. And when you're not achieving that, you're like, why not? How come they're doing this? They're not doing this, but they're doing better. And that can start to run in your mind like, wow. So the question is, what is truth?
Mm-hmm.
And we're taught to, you should look this way. You should earn this much per year. You should be doing this. And if we're not living up to what society tells us, then we say, oh, I'm not good. Society tells me that I'm a bad person because I'm not this way. I don't
Mm-hmm.
fit into the norm. And so we start to criticize other people
Mm-hmm.
that might be achieving something that we're not.
Like an example would be like a high school dropout and now is a millionaire based on an idea they had and they move forward with it. And how many people who went to college and have all these degrees who are barely making it look at that person like they're a high school dropout. Why do they have this? And you know, start criticizing that person for having more than they do. And it's like, I went to school and I should be the one, you know. So it's that type of inner critic, but you're looking at that person more with jealousy and envy versus being happy for them. So if there is a high school dropout that's a millionaire or billionaire, and it should be like, wow, that's awesome. Good for them.
Yeah. And they should tell you that, hey,
Mm-hmm.
like, this is possible and we don't have to do all these things to be able to do that. There's just some different habits and different behaviors that we have to work on. But if we want to really start silencing the inner critic, we have to be aware first. And the way that we can be aware is, again, we pay attention to how we feel about ourselves. Notice how you feel when other people are doing things that maybe they're achieving a goal that you want to achieve, but you're not there yet. How does that make you feel? What's the conversation that goes on in your mind? And what's the conversation that actually comes out of your mouth regarding those people? Because what I've discovered is anytime we're starting to criticize anybody else outside, really we have to take a look at ourselves in the mirror. That's the reflection that's trying to tell us there's something within you that's in disharmony with that.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning that it's going to start creating havoc in your mind and it makes you feel bad. And that's when we can start beating ourselves up. And that's the area we don't want to go. And that's the critic. That's the part of that ego that really gets in our way.
Yeah. And Abigail says, we are designed to be who we are. Others try to change us. We have to stop letting people change us based on their experiences. We should be looking at ourselves. Yeah. And we can't allow other people to change us. Like we still have the decision to choose to change or stay where we are.
No.
And she says, perfection is another extreme.
And she says, yes, cultures can have backwards behaviors and not see it. Yeah, we're not taught. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of it just goes, that's the way it is. And it's like we really think every human needs to be regulated when we can learn to regulate ourselves. And one of the biggest things we have to take a look at too is how society tells us what we need to do.
Yeah.
Ask the question, what's the agenda behind that?
Mm-hmm.
Why do we need to look this way? Why do we need to be doing all these things? And a lot of times you'll find there's a lot of agenda. If you need to look a certain way,
There's
or
a
if
lot
you're
of marketing.
it's a lot of marketing
yeah.
that's involved. You have to pay attention to that.
Mhm.
Who's got, follow the money. Who's benefiting from you wanting to think that way?
Mhm.
Diet companies, magazines want you to buy their again,
Clothing.
yeah, clothing lines, and it's all marketing branded, and like how we adapt our styles of society. It's all based on marketing.
Mhm.
And we have to pay attention to that too. Is like, are we allowing ourselves to be controlled by society? Are we going to start taking control of our own thoughts, our own mind, and make our own decisions?
And Abigail says, I had to stop looking at others and start looking at myself. This is when things began to really shift. Yeah, and that's very important because it's like, look at who you are, internally, and you're this perfect being that's here, and you have talents, you have gifts, and don't be afraid to allow that to shine. Allow your true self to be expressed.
I want to say good morning.
Good morning,
Gloria.
Gloria.
Good morning. She says, yes, Aaron and Veronica, true. Look inside. It's a great reminder for us. And we have to do this often.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that I was even working on even just this past week, because one of my biggest goals and things that I always want to improve in my life is, how can I be a better person? How can I be more kind, more loving, more caring to everybody, even including myself? And a lot of times when there's something I see that's not going right, or if I feel like again, out of habit, maybe I feel like I'm being critical of somebody else or something that's going on outside of me, I understand. And in fact, what I was going to do to always help be a reminder for myself is get like a little pocket mirror and carry it with me all the time. In fact, I want to get one. I was going to tell you this. And having a, yeah, but I want my own. I want my own cosmetic mirror.
I'll break it and give you half.
There we go. So it's always a reminder to say, well, if I ever find myself being critical of anything, as I pull that mirror out and look at myself, and what is it within me that needs to be healed? What is it within me that needs to be worked on? That way I can always look at everybody else as just another person going through their own journey, a reflection. And the more that I can feel better about myself on the inside, that I can be more kinder to myself, silencing that inner critic, where it's more of an inner praiser, if you want to say it, then your outside experience is going to change because you're going to be at a different frequency. You're going to radiate a different vibration that's coming out of you, and you're going to attract better people, better things. But also, when you show up in a different energy, it'll actually help others without you actually having to do anything, because you're going to see you and see your behavior. And that's a big thing that we've always wanted to work on within ourselves, is really just working our own behaviors.
Yeah. And when you work on yourself more and more, even if it's like the same people around you, you're going to notice the good qualities in them versus all their flaws. So it really changes the way you see the world around you. And actually, like, the same people could still be there, but now you're noticing different things that are more positive, that they're good qualities, and maybe the way they treat others, or the work that they do. So it's really your point of focus when you work on yourself internally and you're looking for the good qualities in yourself, then you tend to see it in others.
Yeah. Gloria says, I was taught to ask questions and don't buy into many things. And some people are taught to not ask questions.
Yeah.
So that's a difference.
To just accept what is, and this is how it is.
And that's how criticism can start. If we're taught, you've mentioned this, of people saying, like, don't say anything, don't ask questions.
Yeah.
And we're taught as a young child that it's not good to speak up, to question authority. Yeah. That's a big one. I coming from the medical field, and I would have people come to me and tell me that their doctor had recommended something for them and they questioned it, and the doctor would get upset with them and actually scold them inside the office. And because, again, maybe it's affecting their ego. I don't know, but how that person now says, I don't question the so-called experts, but we're always learning. Yeah. And that's why I call it, even medical field, it's called a practice, because even as doctors, we're always practicing, we're always learning new things. And when we have to be open, and there's so many different possibilities of things to be accomplished, but that's how we get ingrained. We fear of people yelling at us or conflict, and it stops us from really asking those tough questions, especially if it's going to stump somebody.
Yeah. So Abigail says religions have agendas too.
Understand the agendas.
Inner praiser.
And then Abigail says, go ahead.
We need to accept ourselves, flaws and all. We reject people because of their flaws all the time. Sometimes we nitpick each other's flaws unnecessarily. Sometimes it's because we are control people by nature ourselves. And that, if you're nitpicking each other's flaws, that could be because maybe you're not happy with something that's going on within you. It's like the mirror that Aaron was talking about. It's
the transfer of energy. Like, if imagine like when there's something bothering us and we feel frustrated or we feel upset, and rather than doing the inner work and really just clearing it out, a lot of times what people will do is that they need to project that energy onto somebody else.
And then the other person, like, because they feel maybe like they're being attacked or something, then they'll project as well. And there's a back and forth battle of like nitpicking or
defensiveness. And that we become very aware of this. And like, if we're going through something, is just, keep it inside and go through that internal process without projecting anytime we feel something. And that's very important. And so that projection, again, now is becoming seen as a ridicule by the other person. And they maybe have nothing to do with why you're upset, but they become the person that's in the way. And so, again, we always have this transfer of energy that's going around in our society, depending on how we feel. And a lot of people aren't doing the inner work and expecting other people, like, you're the reason why I feel this way, and you need to change this, you need to do all these things. But really, it's us as an individual that we need to change ourselves from within, so we don't get bothered by these things, and realize that it's not other people that are making us feel that way. It's we're choosing to feel that way.
And Abigail says, I agree. Show up with a different perspective, and it does shift the dynamics. Yeah. It's you attract what you put out as well. And then Gloria says, growing up in Catholic school, they were not fond of me questioning anything. I bet.
And so if you guys are just tuning in with us right now, you're watching Awaken Your Spirit. We are your hosts. I'm Dr. Aaron Garcia.
And I'm Veronica Mendez Garcia. And today we're talking about silencing the inner critic.
Ooh, because that critic can be so loud. And we need to be aware of that critic. And again, it shows up in different ways. So here's the signs. Here are the symptoms when that critic is getting in the way. Anytime you start to doubt yourself in any way, shape, or form, you start to criticize yourself. Maybe you see yourself in the mirror and you don't like what you see, or you can't even look at yourself in the mirror. That's definitely a big sign that the critic is out there. And just pay attention if how you start to feel when you start to see other people outside, and what is your thoughts about them? Do you talk about or think about, why do they dress that way, or look at them as different or something other than what you would do? And we have to pay attention to our own thoughts and our own feelings, whether we say it or not. If it's in thought, the energy is there. And that's the biggest thing. Some people, they can be very critical, but they might say anything. They might give you praise in your mind, but if in the inside you're still being critical, but not saying that, you're still being critical. And we're all human. We're all in this world to learn these lessons. And I only share because there's their personal experiences. And when we learn to be mindful of that and be aware of that and work on ourselves from within, we practice. We retrain our own subconscious mind to look at the good in everybody, that everybody's here on their own journey. We have no idea what experiences that they've gone through, what things that they want to create. And we're all here as individuals. We're here to create and be what we want to be and express what we're here to express in our own individual way.
Yeah. And if, sometimes people look at people who look different as like, oh, they're weird and things like that. But they're just unique, and they're, it's like they don't choose to dress like everyone else. They have their own style, and that's fine. Like that's okay. Like, who says we all have to dress the same? Like, is there a rule with that? We can choose to dress any way we want. And, it's up to us to, we have that free will to do it.
Yeah. Abigail says we silence each other a lot more than we realize we do. Absolutely. And it was interesting is years ago, we went to a birthday party for a friend's daughter. And we went to this park, and she was turning, I believe, 9 or 10. And our friend hired a magician to come to this birthday party. And it was like more of like a kid's magician. Yeah, so there was like fun. Different ages. There was like little kids from like 4 or 5 years old up to like, 10 or 11. And so this magician is going through the show, and they're sitting down in this park. And when you're looking at it from an adult's point of view or from a mature point of view, there's like some corny like magic tricks, but they were fun. The little kids were just so enamored. It's like, okay, I pulled a quarter out of my ear, and the kids are like, wow, how'd you do that? But the other kids are like, you just had it in your hand the whole time. And they're questioning this lady. and it's funny because this lady who's like the magician or kind of face painted as a clown, she would just say to all the kids like, oh, sit down. In a like a more polite way of saying like, oh, shut up. Right. But it was like every time they questioned her, it was like, oh, sit down. So that becomes like a new thing in this household when when somebody shows up or we would say a funny comment. It's like, oh, sit down. Because you talk about silencing. It's like the kids are questioning and say, here's what you're doing. It's like, oh, sit down. Like, don't say anything. But we do that. People do that in our society. It happens. And we have to pay attention. If we're looking to improve ourselves, we want to accomplish more things and move forward, is one of the biggest things that we can do is really silence that own inner critic within us. And based on where does this come from? What was taught to you? And can we heal from that?
Yeah, here's a comment from Abigail. I like it. She says, I have bright pink hair and it makes me happy. That should be enough for others in my mind. Yeah, that I like that. Like, it's like you do what makes you feel happy. And it doesn't really matter what others think, because as long as it makes you happy, that's all that matters.
Even if others say something. Mm-hmm. Now that is you'll know when you're making a lot of progress is even if other people are being critical of you, it doesn't faze you. Mm-hmm. You can stand in your own power and say, I love the way I look. I love the way that I feel. I love who I am and what I'm doing.
And that's a great thing, because if others are criticizing, then that's just, a sign for them to know that they have stuff to work on.
And here's the other thing, is be mindful of criticizing people that are criticizing.
Yeah.
So that is the thing. That's the thing. When we've seen this, yes, we've done it ourselves. Oh, they always say this. They're criticizing. They're saying all these things about other people, and then realize we're criticizing them for being critical. And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm actually doing that. Again, there's the mirror reflection that shows up.
Because if it's bothering you, that others are doing it, but then you're criticizing them for doing it, it's like, oh, that's the reflection. Like, I don't like when people do that because I don't like when I do that.
And why? What is even the purpose of silencing that inner critic? Why should we stop criticizing other people and ourselves? Because there are going to be people that ask that question. Like, a lot of people feel that there's benefit to that, or makes them happier, because again, it could mean, well, if I say something to somebody else, it makes me feel better. They're always trying to find a flaw in other people to make themselves feel better in some way. Mm-hmm. And so what's the purpose for us? And Abigail says, if others criticize it, they are telling me about their own limits.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. And so we want to make sure that the purpose for us to work on that critic that's within us, we work on our own critic that says anything about us. We have to start there first, because again, if we're projecting on other people, it's because there's something that's probably within us that we don't like about ourselves, and we're trying to transfer or project that energy onto others. So work on ourselves, because one, it's going to make us feel better. It's going to make us feel better as a person. We will experience more joy and happiness in our life. But also, when we have that inner critic, that part of us that's always negative, we start to attract like energy by law of attraction. We start to attract more critical people into our life. We start to find there's situations of, whether it's we want to change the way that we look, we want to change the way that we feel, but we're not accomplishing that because we're not doing the action steps, because that inner critic says, oh, you can't do that. And we're never changing. We're stuck in the same rut all the time because we never are not telling ourselves that we can do it.
So it's important for us to really look at ourselves in the mirror and, really like who you are, love who you are, and maybe even tell yourself, I love you, when you look in the mirror. Because how many people, when they look at themselves, they point out the flaws, or, oh, I don't like this about me, but it's embracing who you are and loving yourself.
So let's go to this. This is a good question. So Maria says, what about constructive criticism? Isn't that being productive?
Yeah, it's like if people ask you for like your opinion about something versus you telling them, like that would be a form of constructive criticism. Like, hey, I designed this and I want your honest truth. Like, what do you think? If, whatever, like something like that, like an example. Because
we can always improve on something, right? We talk about there's no perfectionism, but we always are looking to make things better in our life. But we're making ourselves be better every single day. We're always working on stuff. Veronica and I are always looking to improve, to be better. But yes, sometimes a constructive criticism. So we look at negative criticism could mean like, how is that person, or how is that way we talk to ourselves, how does that make us feel? And the moment we start to feel bad, we start to feel judgment within our own selves, like we feel sad, we feel guilty, we feel worried. That's not the place that we want to go to. But a constructive criticism would mean more of, I think you can improve in this way, or if someone points out one of your flaws, and I appreciate this, is you're doing this again. And it's like, oh my gosh, I am. And it brings it to my awareness, because a lot of the times these things go unconscious, and it allows me an opportunity to correct myself. But that's the thing, is like, be grateful for someone showing you, hey, there's a flaw there. There's something that can be improved. Thank you for that. I'm going to go work on that, rather than, oh, that's right, I am really a horrible person. And we go and we sulk, and then we start to affirm into our own subconscious mind that it's not good enough. We're not good enough. We're not worth, all the self-talk, and it really depends on how we feel. That's the biggest difference.
Yeah.
So thank you for that question, Maria.
Yeah. So it's a good thing. I know in business, people want to know like the opinions of others. So they'll ask a question like to get the opinions in order to make changes in products and things like that. So that's where you can have that constructive criticism and use it to improve.
Yeah.
But we're always improving.
And so Abigail says, it's productive to a degree. We must see the degrees to know how to discern the situation. Absolutely.
Yeah. And when we have the constructive criticism with ourselves, we do it in a way where we're not feeling bad about ourselves. So we say, how can we improve, and how can I make this better?
Yeah.
Like say you're working on something or a product or something, and you test it, and it's like, how can I make this better? Like I like it, but I want to improve it to be able to sell it to the public or something like that.
Yeah. And here's the thing too, is improve it for you, not necessarily for other people. Because when you start to do it more for yourself, that will give you the satisfaction that you're looking for, that the praise is that inner praise we want to do for ourselves, and do because you love it. And rather than, I'm only doing this, I'm going to improve because I want other people to think better about me. Because again, we fear that criticism. And so do it because you want to be a better person. And that'll definitely help you in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's, like Aaron mentioned, it's like, just do it for us. And that's more on the personal level. Like we can always improve ourselves by working on our inner stuff. And it's always good to improve, to become, to be a better person. And we just, we do personal development, we clear out old limiting beliefs, and we improve the way we feel, but also how we treat other people.
Yeah, and it shows up. You think we're doing really good. We're on this journey of self-improvement and personal growth in our life. It's like we're always focusing on how can we be better people? How can we experience more joy and happiness? Because I've experienced the opposite, and like I don't want to go through that anymore. It's like, okay, I've gone through the frustration, I've gone through the worries and some of the fears, and that doesn't make me feel very good. So what can I do to limit those experiences? And that's where the inner work has come through. Yeah. It's been releasing a lot of emotions, forgiveness of myself for things that I have done, things that I've said, forgiving other people for doing things that in my perception I might have held on to some resentment for, and realize that we're all in this experience. And when I change my perception around things, it's like I let myself off the hook. I start to feel better. I let go of that old emotional weight. And then that's the moment we start to retrain ourselves. Okay, I've been doing these things for so long. That's my normal routine. I'm used to doing that. And each day I'm going to work on something different. I'm going to work on complimenting people every single day. I'm going to work on complimenting myself each day, whether it's through affirmations. And you have to do it repeatedly until that becomes your new normal.
Yeah, because it's creating that new habit of improving, and you're improving yourself by, complimenting other people, complimenting yourself, also doing something that, that's good for you, your mind, your body, your spirit. And, you start to feel good. And then the people around you, they start to feel good as well, because you're radiating that light within you, and you're radiating your happiness and your love, and people around you start to feel it. Yeah. And sometimes you don't even have to say anything, and they feel it.
Yeah. And if you go through those moments where you're just not feeling at your best, because we're going to have those days, something's going to show up in your life, and those moments are there to show you some of the deep rooted stuff that hasn't been worked on yet. And I bless those moments, because I always know something great is going to happen. And it's like, wow, I never knew that was there because it was dormant, and something triggered it to come out again. It's like that seed that has been in the dirt for so long, it got watered, and now that weed has been allowed to sprout and grow. And so now is the time to work through that and pluck that weed out.
Yeah.
And we go through this moment of not feeling good about ourselves. We can have those depressed moments. And some of us, it can be like a couple hours. For some people, it can be months, maybe years sometimes.
Yeah.
And the longer it goes, it means that we're not paying attention. We're not working through it. We're just getting caught up into it. And that can, the longer we stay in, is the more we start to ingrain that in our subconscious mind. And we affirm the negative stuff.
Yeah. And
we have to affirm the positive. So one thing that we tend to do is, if we find ourselves being critical of ourselves or even other people, is kind of doing a visualization where you see yourself as that child that's within us, that innocence, that spirit that's within all of us. And you talk to him or her, and notice how they look, their body language, how they're feeling. Are they happy, bubbly, go lucky? Or are they sad? Are they sulking? Are they crying? And that's the inner part of us that might have some wounds. And we pay attention to that and nurture that child that's within us. We can all do that. And sometimes you might feel emotion coming out because that inner child is a part of you.
Yeah.
And we allow those emotions to release until you see that child start to feel a bit better. Maybe you give the child a hug and say, everything's gonna be okay. I know you've been hurt in the past. These things have happened to you, but you're safe. I have you. We got this. You can do anything. And then when you start to feel better on the inside, you're working through it. That's a healing process.
Yeah. Let's see what Abigail says. You might see it as constructive because of your experience. My experience might show it to be rude. And this is where we were talking about the constructive criticism. So I guess it depends on how it comes off as, being constructive, but some people can take it as rude. You are both good teachers. You balance each other nicely. Well, thank you.
Well, so let's go back to that concept of the experience for a moment. Yeah. So again, how do we perceive it? And sometimes, depending on the mood that we're in, right? If someone can say something like, oh, and it's like, if you're used to being criticized all the time, you don't like being criticized, even just the slightest bit of criticism can trigger an emotion. And it can seem like, oh, they're just being very critical. And when we learn to, and the key thing is whether someone's doing it constructively or rudely, is when we work on ourselves, is we can thank both of them.
Yeah.
Because even if it's a rude, we can look back on ourselves. Is this true? Is this something that I can really work on? Are they showing me something that I really need to could improve on?
Can I improve in this? Like, do they have some truth to it or not?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if it does affect us like that emotionally, then that's still something that we work through. And it's like, well, why does this affect me so much when they're telling me this?
Yeah. And if they find, like you said, something being truthful, if what they say there is truth, like you are always late, or you never are considerate about other people, the list can go on of things, and you can stop and think, are they true? Is that true? Am I not? Because a lot of times we don't see ourselves in the mirror, what our actions or what we say or what we do. And when someone points that out, we have to look at, wow, do I actually do that? And if it's a yes, that's an area that we can work on. I didn't realize that. And a lot of times it's out of our awareness. I didn't realize I said that. I didn't realize that I was doing this. I didn't mean it to be anything negative towards you or anybody else. I didn't know. Thank you for showing that to me. And we can improve. But there are those times when people just try to criticize because they're going through an emotional state. And if your thought process is that true? And it says, no, that's not true. I know my truth. I know where I stand. And then you can not allow that can bounce off. But if you find there's something within you that could be improved on, sometimes it might feel a little hurt at the beginning, but then thank it and try to go to work on improving that for the next time. But allow those people to be the person that points it out to you, because we can always improve on something. But a lot of times our improvement comes from these difficult experiences.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that like just because someone says something that you have to change it, because only do it if you feel like it's the right choice for you, because then you're going with what you want, not what others think you
make it
should
your
do.
choice. That's a good point.
And then Abigail says, some people attack other people's happiness. This tells you that they are in pain and unable to be happy for some reason too. And yeah, that's a good point, because like when someone's projecting anger towards you, like say you're having a good time somewhere and someone's like projecting anger towards you, what I teach my daughter is they're suffering on the inside. They have something going on within themselves that they're projecting. But most of the time it has nothing to do with you. It's what they feel on the inside about themselves. And it could have just been like something just triggered them. And it was just like, their cup got too full and they blew up.
Yeah. And that inner critic can get defensive and start saying things. Oh, they're doing this. And, we start to feel those emotions kick in. Mm-hmm. And then again, it's the projection back. So it's the back and forth a lot of times with that criticism. Someone criticizes us. Oh, then we criticize them right back, mm-hmm. rather than saying, thank you, put water on the fire rather than putting lighter fuel.
Mm-hmm. And here's a good question. On a job performance review, are you being rude or helpful? That's a good question, because it's a job performance review. So they're reviewing your performance. And I think a lot of times it does, it's the way people say it. And, mm-hmm. Most of the time, like a good way to do it would be, tell them all the great things that they're doing and say, some areas of improvement could be this, this, and this. But if they project it in a way like where they're being rude, like you never do this, and like they're showing anger behind it, then that's a personal thing that they have going on. But if it's a performance review, that there's always room for improvement, and how can you make your job better, for yourself, but also for other people.
Yeah, it's like we've learned before, like that compliment sandwich, which is tell them something that they did good at, tell them where they can improve, and then finish with a compliment. Mm-hmm. Finish with something that can improve. So it's always giving praise in some way. But a lot of us, again, it's society. It's the habit of way things. We're always taught what we're doing wrong, and it depends on who you're doing the review for, because everybody's got to have their own perception around this. Maybe the person you did a review for has been, overly criticized by their family their whole entire life, and they start to play out those experiences, and you're just the next person in line. Mm-hmm. But we can learn how to switch up that pattern and come at it. But again, it's all in your attitude towards it and in the words that you use. So just be mindful and know that person you're giving the review for, and what's the best way to approach them.
So Eric Swanson says their cup of tequila's got too full. Yeah. Let's see. Abigail.
She says, you might see me being late as rude. I might see it as being overwhelmed by time and things that get in my way. It is all about perspective in many mm-hmm. ways. Just because someone sees my behavior as wrong, it doesn't mean that I was wrong. I was their perspective. It was their perspective and not my experience.
Yeah. And that is true, because, sometimes the way I see it, it's like, and we're running late somewhere, it's like, we'll get there when we get there. And, maybe we weren't supposed to be there at that exact same time. It's like showing up to a party a little bit late instead of like being there way before the party starts and you're super early. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's okay. And don't beat yourself up even if you're late. And, we've experienced that where we were running late somewhere and we showed up and it was fine. Nothing happened. Nobody got mad.
I don't think anything ever happens when we show up late.
No, it's like you're late, and that's it. And
I think we're taught, because like we're in school, mm-hmm. is if you show up late, you're gonna get a note, or you're gonna get punished. Maybe you get enough late, you're gonna get a detention or expelled from school. And we're taught that that it's a very bad thing, and so everybody has different perspectives of what that can mean. Mm-hmm. Now, it's not to say it's just be late to everything. It's it's also being mindful of other people because of how they might they could perceive
their time.
It. Yeah.
Like especially if you have an appointment or something, and then you show up like half hour late, and then now your appointment's pretty much gone because that was your half hour,
Yeah.
then that's kind of different. But if it's like a party or something and no one's really needing you to be there at the same exact time, then, it's fine. But if it's like an appointment that, there's other people that go, after you, then it's just being mindful of that. But then you can have a courtesy call like, hey, I'm not going to make it on time, or I'm running 5 minutes late, whatever it is.
So as Eric said, he pointed out something. It's like when Veronica and I run late, what we do is we always bring cake.
And everybody's happy again.
And everybody's happy again. So bring guests, bring goodies. It's like, hey, I'm late, but I got a cake.
And they forget that you're late.
Yeah, but it's like you defuse the situation.
Yeah.
And because we never know when things happen. But we're talking about, silencing our own inner critic.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way if we find that there's other people being critical of us and if they're being critical of other people, is we stop and say, okay, what's showing up outside of me that I can work on within myself?
Mm-hmm.
And if you find that you're getting affected or upset or emotionally caught up into that criticism, whether it's someone criticizing towards you or they're criticizing to other people, how does that make you feel? And then we start to think about, how do we criticize ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
Again, it could be, if I'm late, that means this, or I'm not a good person, or we beat ourselves up. I get people that get super anxiety, when they think that they're going to be late.
Yeah.
And I felt that worry, like what's going to happen, or
Mm-hmm.
what are people going to think? Because we start to criticize ourselves. And so we have to give ourselves more love.
And Abigail says, I say start without me. That's exactly what I say too, especially if it's a party and they're, waiting for people. Just start without me. If you're going to eat, go ahead.
Yes, the cake is a bribe for forgiveness. Forgive me. Here's cake.
And then Eric says, we always think you guys are the finale.
We are. Cake always makes everything better. See, look how the conversation just changed by Eric bringing the word up cake. And everybody, all the smiles and
cake.
drooling right now. It's like, ooh, cake. And it's like the ninja, the distraction, right? You distract ourselves for a moment. But that's a great point. Sometimes we have to distract our inner critic. It wants to go in a certain way, and then we say, oh, cake. And it's like it brings up the mood again.
Mm-hmm.
And then
cookies.
Or cookies, right? And then we feel a little better for it in that split moment. That's when we slip in the positive praise.
Mm-hmm.
We tell ourselves, this isn't as bad as it's going to be. We can get through this. Thank you for this moment, because I'm going to work through something. And we use our emotions to help guide us. And when we don't feel good about something, that's a moment for us to work through something.
And then Eric says, whenever I'm late, I say, I'm not late. I'm the finale. You save the best thing for last.
This is cake. That sounds kind of weird. I'm late. You say that too many times fast, it has a different meaning to it. But silencing that. Sit down. So Abigail, I like a happy distraction. Give us happy distraction. Give yourself a happy distraction often. And what that will do, it completely does a full state change. You can go from upset and frustrated and something just like, it's like a pattern interrupt. And it's like, what was I upset about again? Yeah. And we go into this good feeling. Mm-hmm. And in those good feelings, it just brightens up our day. We can laugh things off. Laughter is one of the best medicines. We feel happy, feel love, and we go back to it. And we were told ourselves, I can't believe I used to really get caught up or get upset by these things. And we look at our improvement and our progress is the things that used to bother us, they don't bother us anymore. Yeah. And that's when we know we're having our growth. Yeah.
So Eric, he came up with a .com, happycake.com.
He's always got his new URLs.
And, I was also thinking you can be like a magician and you can carry things with you like that distract people and, just for fun, like say someone's, disrupting and maybe creating some kind of projection of anger. And then you, hey, have you ever seen this? And you come up with a magic trick and it just diffuses the whole situation. Because who doesn't like magic?
That's another ninja move.
I know.
We talk about the ninja move all the time. And the ninja move, if you guys haven't heard us talk about this before, is when you find yourself getting caught up in like negative conversations, or someone wants to talk about all the bad that's going on in the world, Or let's talk about in this line of criticism, you're finding that you're getting caught up, especially if you're trying to work through this with yourself, and you find yourself getting caught up in criticizing conversations, like where people are talking about other people. And what you do is you learn to switch the conversation by another pattern interrupt. Hey, how was your trip this last weekend? Or here's some cake.
Hey, have you ever had like an ice cream cake with like a surprise in the middle?
Yeah. And you completely change it off topic into something more positive. And this works really well. And we've done it so many times when we feel like, hey, we're getting caught up in a very negative conversation. We can see the people in the crowd getting a little bit agitated, and you completely switch the conversation. It was like ninja. So
Eric says, bring a magician to every barbecue you attend.
Didn't you do that once, Eric? I think he did bring a magician to a barbecue.
Yeah, but it's fun. It's so like, wow. And then people, they like it, and like whatever negativity was there, it's like, oh, like they forget about it.
Yeah. So ninja move. And Eric says, I think I am a pattern interrupt.
I think you are too.
Are you criticizing Eric?
No.
Are you projecting?
In a good way.
in a good way. And again, it's how you perceive it, right? Mm-hmm. So if when you say I am, you're affirming into your subconscious mind that you are that thing. So be careful of what you talk to yourself. And if it makes you feel good, you could go with it. But if it makes you feel bad, if you find yourself always frustrated or upset all the time or not feeling great on the inside, you change the way the conversation in your own mind. You change if you say people are always critical of me, people are always giving me constructive criticism, and I improve from that. Thank you very much.
So Abigail says, I am the magician. Magic goes with me everywhere I go. Ooh. I like magic. So
on that line, we're going to magically disappear in about just a couple seconds here, because we are towards the end of our show. We've been having a great conversation. We hope you guys have gotten a lot of benefit from this and give you some food for thought. Craig says, I think we are all a little bit hard on ourselves at times. It's that inner voice that we need to silence. Mm-hmm. And that is very important, because when we silence our own inner critic, we also silence the critic that comes out, or also the critics that come towards us.
Eric's nickname is Cake.
Eric Cake Swanson Garcia.
And he's awesome.
You are. You are awesome. Okay. You are all awesome in your own unique way. And go with that through each and every day. Silence that inner critic. Thank the critic for being there to show you in areas that you need to work on. And every time you work on something, congratulate yourselves. I work through, and you get a plaque, you get a certificate. Maybe we'll do that in the future. We'll give people certificates for breaking through something that they've been holding on to for a while.
And then the thing will say, I am awesome.
I am awesome. Signed by Eric Swanson. Abigail says, I love you guys. Thank you guys for being here again. You've been watching Awaken Your Spirit. We are your hosts. I'm Dr. Aaron Garcia.
And I'm Veronica Mendez Garcia, and we thank you guys for joining us.
We are live here every Mondays and Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern time. If you guys would like to join us each and every time we go live, turn on the live notifications here in the feed if you're on Facebook. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to our channel and click that little bell to get the notifications each time we have a video that pops up. Go ahead.
I was going to say, also on Thursday, we have Numerology Thursdays with Darius Oliver. So tune into that.
Yeah, if you guys haven't joined us on that, that's very fascinating, where Darius will go into numbers and how we can use numerology in our life, and how our calculations can really tell a lot about ourselves, things that we should work on in this month, this year. We're going to get deeper into that tomorrow. So it's really fascinating. Join us there.
It's at 10 a.m. Pacific.
10 a.m. Pacific. Thank you guys again for joining with us. We will see you next time.
Have a great day.
Bye.